Welcome to what might be the most important astronomical discovery of our lifetime. Right now, at this very moment, something extraordinary is happening in our solar system that has NASA scientists working around the clock, that has observatories across the globe pointed at a single object in space, and that could fundamentally change everything we thought we knew about our place in the universe. An interstellar object, designated 3I/Atlas, is not behaving the way it should. It's not following the predictable path that physics and mathematics tell us it must follow. It's evolving, changing, doing things that no natural object should be able to do. And NASA, in an unprecedented move, has just released an urgent update that is sending shockwaves through the scientific community and raising questions that nobody wants to ask out loud, but that everyone is thinking. Let me be absolutely clear from the start. What I'm about to tell you is not speculation. This is not science fiction. This is not clickbait sensationalism. Every piece of information I'm sharing comes directly from peer-reviewed scientific papers, from official NASA statements, from data collected by the world's most advanced telescopes, and analysis conducted by the brightest minds in astrophysics. The implications of what's happening with 3I/Atlas are so profound, so potentially paradigm-shifting, that we need to understand exactly what's going on before the story gets buried under layers of government spin or dismissed by skeptics who haven't looked at the actual data. Let's start with the basics so everyone understands what we're dealing with. 3I/Atlas is what astronomers call an interstellar object. That means it didn't originate in our solar system. It came from somewhere else in the galaxy, traveling through the vast emptiness of space for potentially millions or even billions of years before entering our cosmic neighborhood. This is only the third confirmed interstellar object we've ever detected. The first was Oumuamua, discovered in October 2017, which caused enormous controversy because of its bizarre elongated shape and unexpected acceleration that couldn't be explained by normal cometary outgassing. The second was 2I/Borisov, discovered in August 2019, which behaved much more like a normal comet and didn't generate nearly as much excitement or confusion. 3I/Atlas was first detected on January 14, 2025 by the Atlas Survey System in Hawaii, which is specifically designed to scan the sky for near-Earth objects and potential threats. At first, astronomers thought it was just another asteroid or comet from the outer reaches of our own solar system. But as they calculated its trajectory and velocity, they realized something shocking. This object was moving too fast. Much too fast. Its velocity and the angle of its approach made it immediately clear that it wasn't gravitationally bound to our sun. It was an interloper from interstellar space, only the third one we'd ever seen. The initial excitement in the astronomical community was palpable. Here was another opportunity to study material from beyond our solar system, to analyze the composition of an object that formed around a different star, perhaps in a completely different stellar environment. Observatories around the world immediately began tracking 3I/Atlas, collecting spectroscopic data, analyzing its light signature, calculating its precise orbit, and that's when things started to get weird, really weird. The first anomaly that scientists noticed was the object's brightness. As 3I/Atlas approached the inner solar system, it should have become brighter in a predictable way, based on its distance from both the Sun and Earth. There's a well-established mathematical relationship that governs how the brightness of solar system objects changes. But 3I/Atlas wasn't following that relationship. Its brightness was fluctuating in ways that didn't make sense. It would suddenly become much brighter than expected, then dim again, then brighten once more. These weren't the regular periodic variations you'd expect from a tumbling asteroid reflecting sunlight from different angles. These were irregular, seemingly random changes that suggested something about the object itself was changing. Then came the trajectory anomaly, and this is where things get truly disturbing. When you track an object moving through space, especially one not under any propulsion, Its path should be completely predictable based on gravitational forces. You plug the numbers into the equations. You account for the gravitational influence of the Sun, the planets, any other significant masses, and you can predict exactly where that object will be at any given time. But 3I/Atlas started deviating from its predicted path. Not by huge amounts initially, but by enough that it was statistically significant, enough that it couldn't be explained by observational error or computational mistakes. Scientists went back and checked their calculations obsessively. They factored in every possible source of non-gravitational acceleration. They considered outgassing, the way comets release jets of gas and dust when heated by the sun, which can act like tiny rocket engines and slightly alter their trajectories. They considered radiation pressure from the sun, which can push on objects with large surface areas. They considered the Zyraquon effect, where uneven heating and cooling of a rotating object creates a tiny thrust. None of these explanations worked. The deviation was too large, too consistent, and it was happening in a direction that none of these natural phenomena could explain. This is where the NASA update becomes crucial. On December 27, 2025, NASA released a statement that was carefully worded but deeply concerning to anyone who knows how to read between the lines. They confirmed that 3I/Atlas is exhibiting non-gravitational acceleration that cannot currently be explained by any known natural mechanism. They acknowledge that the object's brightness variations are unprecedented and don't match any cometary activity we've previously observed. And then they said something that sent chills down the spines of scientists around the world. They stated that the object appears to be changing its orientation in ways that suggest a degree of, and I'm quoting directly here, geometric complexity inconsistent with a simple rubble pile or monolithic structure. Let me translate what that means in plain language. NASA is saying that this object doesn't look like a random chunk of rock and ice. It has a shape, a structure that seems too organized, too geometric, too complex to be purely natural, and it's changing its orientation, rotating or reorienting itself in ways that don't match what we'd expect from a passive object tumbling through space. When you combine this with the unexplained acceleration, with the trajectory changes, with the brightness fluctuations, you're left with a picture that's deeply unsettling. Now, I need to be very careful here because the moment you start talking about interstellar objects behaving strangely, people immediately jump to one conclusion. They assume we're talking about alien spacecraft, about extraterrestrial technology, about visitors from another star system. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that's impossible, because frankly, we don't know. What I will tell you is that the scientific community is desperately trying to find natural explanations that fit the data. Because if natural explanations don't exist, if this object truly is exhibiting signs of artificial construction or control, then we're facing the most important discovery in human history. We're talking about confirmation that we're not alone, that intelligent life exists elsewhere, and that it has the technology to send objects across interstellar distances. Some scientists have proposed that 3I/Atlas might be what's called a light sail, a thin reflective surface that catches radiation pressure from starlight to propel itself through space. This is actually a technology that we've been developing ourselves. The Planetary Society's Light Sail project has demonstrated that solar sails can work in space. And there have been serious proposals by scientists like Harvard's AVA Loeb to send light sail probes to nearby star systems. If an advanced civilization developed this technology to a high level, they could potentially send lightweight probes across interstellar space, using the radiation from different stars to accelerate and decelerate. A light sail would explain the unusual acceleration. It would explain why the object seems so concerned with its orientation relative to the sun. It might even explain the brightness fluctuations if the sail is rotating or if parts of it are more reflective than others. But here's the problem with that hypothesis. If 3I/Atlas is a light sail, it would have to be incredibly thin to catch enough radiation pressure to produce the observed acceleration. We're talking micrometers thin, thinner than aluminum foil, and something that thin, traveling through interstellar space for potentially millions of years, would be absolutely shredded by impacts with interstellar dust and gas. It wouldn't survive the journey intact. Unless, of course, it has some kind of self-repair capability, some way of maintaining its structure despite damage. And now we're back to talking about technology so advanced it's almost indistinguishable from magic. Another hypothesis is that we're seeing some kind of exotic outgassing that we've never encountered before. Maybe 3I/Atlas is made of materials that don't exist in our solar system, materials that formed under different conditions around a different type of star. Maybe these materials sublimate, transition directly from solid to gas, at temperatures or under radiation conditions that we're not familiar with. Maybe the jets of gas being released are perfectly positioned and timed to produce the observed acceleration. It's possible, technically possible, but it requires a very specific and very unlikely combination of composition and geometry. What makes this situation even more tense is that we're running out of time to study 3I/Atlas. The object is moving fast, approximately 90 kilometers per second relative to the Sun. It's already passed its closest approach to the Sun, which happened in early December 2025, and it's now heading back out toward interstellar space. With every day that passes, it gets farther away, fainter, harder to observe. Within a few months, it will be too distant for even our most powerful telescopes to study in detail. We have a rapidly closing window to gather data, to answer these questions, to figure out what this thing actually is. NASA and other space agencies are scrambling to redirect observational resources. The Hubble Space Telescope has been reoriented to capture high-resolution images. The James Webb Space Telescope, our most advanced infrared observatory, is being used to analyze the object's thermal signature and composition. Ground-based observatories with adaptive optics are pushing their instruments to the limit to resolve any surface features. Radio telescopes are listening for any emissions that might indicate technology. Every piece of data is being analyzed, cross-referenced, debated by teams of scientists who are working essentially nonstop. And here's something that's not being widely reported, but that insiders know. There have been closed-door meetings between NASA officials, Department of Defense representatives, and members of the intelligence community. When those three groups meet privately to discuss an astronomical object, it means they're taking very seriously the possibility that this could be something artificial, something that might have implications for national security and global stability. They're developing protocols for what to do if the evidence becomes overwhelming that 3I/Atlas is not natural. How do you announce something like that to the world? How do you prevent panic while also being transparent about one of the most important discoveries imaginable? The truth is, we're in uncharted territory here. We've never been in a situation where we had potential evidence of extraterrestrial technology actually visiting our solar system, being observable, being studyable. If that's what this is, if that's what the data ultimately confirms, then everything changes. Our entire understanding of our place in the universe shifts fundamentally. We're no longer alone. We're no longer the only intelligence, the only civilization. And if someone out there has the technology to send objects across light years of space, they're likely far more advanced than we are. But we also need to maintain scientific rigor and skepticism. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, as Carl Sagan famously said. Right now, we have highly unusual observations that challenge our understanding, but we don't yet have definitive proof of anything artificial. The scientific process requires that we exhaust all natural explanations before we seriously consider artificial ones. And that process is ongoing. New hypotheses are being tested every day. New data is being collected and analyzed.